Coming up on Market to Market, presidential candidate surrogates outline their priorities for rural America. The Agriculture Department releases its much-anticipated supply and demand estimates. And the EPA explains why it's conducting aerial surveillance of some livestock operations. Those stories and market analysis with Elaine and Walt Hackney next.
Funding for Market to Market is provided by DuPont Pioneer, working with growers to match the right product to the right acre. Science with service, delivering success. This is the Friday, September 14 edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. U.S. stocks soared this week after America's central bank unveiled new efforts to jumpstart the economy. On Thursday, Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke announced the Fed will spend $40 billion a month to buy mortgage bonds in hopes of stimulating the beleaguered housing sector. The Fed plans to hold short-term interest rates at record lows through mid-2015, 6 months longer than previously planned. And Bernanke signals he's ready to try additional measures if hiring doesn't pick up. Wall Street cheered the Federal Reserve announcement. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained more than 200 points on the news, while the S&P 500 soared to its highest level since 2007. Stocks added to their gains Friday and settled with a weekly increase of over 300 points. Mitt Romney's presidential campaign said the Fed's latest efforts to boost the economy are further confirmation that President Obama's policies have not worked. Both campaigns dispatched surrogates to the heartland this week to champion their economic agenda in a presidential forum on agriculture.
Surrogates for both the Mitt Romney and Barack Obama presidential campaigns trekked to the heartland this week to defend their respective candidates in the realm of agricultural policy. Speaking at the World Food Prize headquarters in Des Moines, former Iowa Lieutenant Governor and State Secretary of Agriculture Patty Judge vigorously defended President Obama's response to the 2012 drought.
In this recent drought, the President has taken concrete steps to help farmers and ranchers manage devastating conditions. He's making loans more accessible to farmers and to small businesses, and he's working with crop insurance companies so that farm families affected by the drought will have a longer grace period to make those payments on their insurance premiums.
Nebraska Senator and former USDA Secretary Mike Johans blasted back at the Obama administration for underutilizing available government tools during this year's drought conditions.
And I have to tell you, the biggest problem I had was where to begin with Barack Obama. I've been there those 4 years in the United States Senate. And I don't use this terminology lightly, but he has been anti-agriculture. The USDA, in their own analysis, said 50 to 60 million acres will be set aside, not for cropland, but to plant trees. Do you know how much that would aggravate the current drought conditions?
Ongoing debate in Washington over the 2012 Farm Bill spilled over into the Presidential Ag Forum as both surrogates advocated swift passage of the comprehensive legislation.
Let's go to work on the Farm Bill. Let's take the politics out of it. Let's get good policy, and we can get there. We can get a Farm Bill passed. We did it in the Senate.
The truth is that we have got to get that Farm Bill passed. We've got to get down the road with that because these disaster programs are expired. I really hate to see this whole thing being used as a political football, but I'm afraid it is election time, and a certain amount of that is going on.
But the agreement between both parties didn't last long. Senator Johans blasted the Obama administration over a series of incidents he called anti-agriculture.
The estate tax. His budget proposed that instead of leaving your farm and ranch to the next generation, you will leave a substantial portion of it to the federal government. Think about the dust regulation. I know the EPA is out there today saying, oh, we never meant to do it. The milk regulation, do you remember that one? They were going to treat milk spills the same as oil spills. Well, come to find out, the EPA was taking airplanes up and flying at 1,500 feet to spy on producers. The health care bill, I've got bad news for farmers and ranchers. They're a part of this class where their premiums are going to go up, not go down.
Judge accused Johans of twisting the truth and misrepresenting the president's record.
There are no drones. There are no dust regulations. I lived through the 1980s on a small farm in southern Iowa. I'm going to stand here and tell you, trickle-down economics does not work. It has never worked. Some sort of idea that...
Senator Johans and other members of the Nebraska congressional delegation sent a letter to the Environmental Protection Agency last spring questioning the EPA's aerial surveillance of concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. In June, the Nebraska Republican proposed an amendment to the Senate's version of the Farm Bill banning the EPA's use of the controversial tactic. The amendment failed by 4 votes. Johans describes the EPA as one of the most unfriendly agencies of the government and says the practice of overflights must be stopped. In the wake of Johans' letter, federal officials held listening sessions, giving animal producers the opportunity to ask questions about the controversial practice. David Miller explains.
The Environmental Protection Agency's practice of inspecting feedlots from the air has drawn the ire of more than a few Midwesterners.
In the majority of instances, you're taking photographs of someone's home in addition to a business facility. That's very different than some of the cases out there where you're taking photographs of just a chemical manufacturing plant. And so I think that that's a very broad interpretation of what privacy rights we have, especially from the government.
This is a commercial operation that's being photographed. So, I mean, we can argue about the case law, but EPA is on pretty solid legal ground so far as the ability to do this.
You know, you can see some leachate.
Late last month, more than 150 farmers gathered in the northwestern Iowa town of Arcadia to discuss their concerns about EPA inspection practices for concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs.
Do we count livestock after we take a picture? I have in a few instances, yeah. If it allows me to get a pretty good good guess or an estimate, if not even an estimate, it allows me to determine the number of cattle that are there in the photo. If I have photos that kind of represent the entire operation, I have done that to see if it's a large or a medium.
Always looking for ways to increase efficiency, the EPA began aerial surveys as a cost-effective method of verifying compliance with the Clean Water Act. Officials say aerial inspections allow them to cover 80 to 100 facilities per flight. They're quick to point out the information gathered from 1,500 feet above the ground is only for preliminary assessment.
You know, what we're trying to focus on are the ones that are clearly man-made conveyances and that are clearly conveying waste down to those streams. And those are the ones that we're trying to address right now and up front.
CAFOs comprise the bulk of animal agriculture in the United States. Operations with 300 head of cattle or more are regulated by both state and federal agencies. However, after more than 2 years of flyovers, concerns are being raised about EPA's aerial surveillance. Nebraska Senator Mike Johans and Iowa Senator Charles Grassley, both farm state Republicans, adamantly object to the practice, and both have sent letters to EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson demanding an explanation.
I'm very suspicious of what they're up to. It's big brother government nosing around a lot of private property. They tend to be concentrating on Iowa and Nebraska, and if there's a national problem, why aren't they involved in the same way in all 50 states? I've had a briefing by EPA. I'm not satisfied with that briefing.
We asked some real straightforward questions of Lisa Jackson, basically explain the program, tell us what you're doing out there. To this day, she has refused to answer that letter.
It may be that when all is said and done, Senator Johans and our agency just won't see eye to eye on a practice that's fully legal. It's been reviewed by the U.S. Supreme Court, approved by the Supreme Court. That's okay. We have a lot of critics and we have disagreements with members of Congress. But at the end of the day, if we can do our job better and more economically, both for us and for producers, that ought to benefit anybody who is involved in the cattle industry.
She dispatched the regional administrator, but he doesn't have any idea what's going on the national level. And, you know, after all, we are United States senators. We have a right to know what's going on in the country. She's stonewalling us. She doesn't want to tell us something. And so that's the kind of cooperation we've gotten from this administration.
If it's a large CAFO, we might treat them a little different. There's a little higher expectation on the large that, you know.
While there was clearly some tension at the Iowa meeting, Several Iowa cattle producers chose to focus on an improved relationship with federal regulators.
When it comes to the flyovers, I was confronted by an individual the other day, and I said, well, do you have something to hide? And my next question to him was, have you Googled yourself on the computer? There's no secrets out there. Anyone can fly over your place and take a picture. So are we hiding something? Is there something wrong? I think that's a challenge, so let's fix it.
While some producers may be concentrating on better relationships with government officials, Johans and Grassley say they'll continue to press EPA for answers.
Next, the market-to-market report.
Soybean prices rallied late this week after the Agriculture Department released its latest estimates on supply and demand. To almost no one's surprise, the USDA reduced its guesstimate on U.S. corn and soybean production. But the degree of the adjustment surprised some traders.
As expected, the Agriculture Department predicted this week that U.S. farmers will produce considerably less grain than last year. According to USDA, total U.S. corn production will amount to just 10.7 billion bushels, down 13% from 2011. If realized, that would be the smallest corn harvest since 2006. The government pegs the average yield at 122.8 bushels per acre, which would be the smallest yield in 17 years. Soybean estimates also were curtailed. The government now calls for total U.S. production of 2.63 billion bushels, down 14% from 2011. The average soybean yield is expected to decline to 35.3 bushels per acre, down 15% from last year. Turning to its monthly supply and demand estimates, USDA actually increased corn beginning stocks. Despite lower yields in the Corn Belt, the government predicts the early harvest will boost carry-in, resulting in corn ending stocks of 733 million bushels. Analyzed as a percentage of demand, the numbers add up to a razor-thin U.S. stocks-to-use ratio of 6.5%. That would be the tightest corn stocks-to-use ratio in 17 years, leaving virtually no cushion for increased demand or production shortfalls. Soybean supplies also reflect the impact of drought. USDA's August estimate on domestic ending stocks was unchanged at 115 million bushels, their lowest level in 9 years. An accompanying U.S. soybean stocks-to-use ratio of 4% is small historically and leaves little room for crop adversity.
The Agriculture Department's reports released on Wednesday generally were viewed as bullish for soybeans and bearish for wheat and corn. For the week, December wheat gained 20 cents, while the nearby corn contract moved 18 cents lower. USDA's supply and demand estimates proved to be bullish for soybeans, and the November contract settled Friday with a weekly gain of nearly 3 cents, while nearby meal prices moved $3.70 lower. In the softs, cotton moved in a sideways fashion, gaining 18 cents per hundredweight. In the dairy market, October Class 3 milk futures gained 4 cents, while the deferred contract moved 37 cents higher. Over in livestock, October cattle gained 58 cents, nearby feeders gained 47, and the October lean hog contract gained $2.67. In the financials, the euro gained 320 basis points against the dollar. Crude oil rose nearly $2.60 per barrel. COMEX gold advanced more than $31.80 per ounce, and the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index gained nearly 20 points to close at 694.30. Here now to lend us their insight on these and other trends are two of our regular market analysts, Elaine and Walt Hackney. Right. Folks, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's start off the discussion with the big news from the Fed yesterday, launching into QE3, quantitative easing. What does that mean for these commodity markets going forward, Elaine?
Well, the takeaway from QE3 is that it makes the dollar cheaper, and that has been the effect of QE1 and QE2. The difference of QE3 is that it's basically unending. You know, that's going to go on every month until they get whatever result they want, and they didn't really put an official goal on that, which means that they could just be pumping $40 billion of money to cheapen the dollar every month for the foreseeable future. And a cheaper dollar is good news for farmers and any sort of commodity producer on the world scale, but you have to consider that each of those dollars now is worth relatively less, or it takes more of them for a consumer, for our customers and our customers' customers to buy our products. So it's a little bit of a two-edged sword as far as the ag markets go, but for the time being, and this was the trend of the dollar going into this, is that the dollar is cheaper, which is a bullish argument for commodities.
And they see the dollar being cheaper for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean,
as long as this continues?
That was a surprise. So the trend going into this was the expectation that the Fed would do something. And I think the large jump that we've seen, or the large drop that we've seen in the dollar these last couple of sessions, and the large jump in gold suggests that this was a surprise, that the market was a little bit stunned by the size and the scope and the length of this program. Not just that they did a program, but that the program was this aggressive.
All right. Anything else in the outside markets really driving commodities this week, or?
I would say that's the number one thing, a cheaper dollar, yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk wheat a little bit. Where do you see wheat heading?
Wheat might be running into some technical resistance up here. It might be running out of some steam just on a chart basis. It has enjoyed a lot of support. It's been a leader of the grain market simply because of the export news. But the export benefit is really going towards Russia and France right now. The U.S. wheat is not really getting a lot of these new tenders.
All right. So going forward, what do we see there?
I would expect to see wheat continue to be a leader from day to day, but the fundamental stories of wheat are not going to be the leader. I am not looking at them creating new highs here in the next month.
Okay, so what's your news to producers out there?
Well, my news to producers would be, the question is, are we buying acres? Is this a bullish story for many months in time? And that might be something that is more of a world story. The U.S. is obviously still in this drought, and we're running out of, there's not as much motivation for U.S. wheat farmers to be planting. So that's a question that we might come into 6 months down the road. But for now, if you're looking at marketing in the near future, you've got this mildly bullish commodity story. But other than that, we might be near the highs.
All right. All right. Moving on to corn, we had the USDA report come out on the 12th. We saw some movement in the market, but not that much. What does that tell you, Elaine?
Again, humans and traders in general respond more to surprises. So the idea of the USDA increasing carryover from 2011 was not as much of a surprise to them as the news for the soybean market was a surprise. And so that's why we have seen soybeans be the leader this week rather than corn. And the corn market in general has not enjoyed, we have not really been able to attract a lot of new speculative money. So again, it seems like it's running out of steam, and if you look at it from a fundamental standpoint, from the harvest reports, most of the worst fields in the U.S. Corn Belt have already been harvested. So the worst news, the most bullish news from a harvest yield standpoint has probably already been considered and thought about by the market.
All right. Now, with that in mind, looking at where prices are today, what should producers be thinking as they're harvesting? What are they going to do with their corn? What do you suggest?
Well, at this point, you're going to now have a good sense of whether or not you've got enough corn and got enough grain to cover your cash contracts. And so now you might be in a position again where you'd be willing to sell some more. And there's basically no motivation in the market, in the carry, in the future spreads for anyone to store it past the end of the year. So particularly to pay your bills, and you've got it to sell, and these are perfectly fine, profitable prices to sell if you've got the grain. So I think you're going to see a lot of corn and grain, soybeans also being sold right off the combine for these prices. And I saw someone in the market considering that farmers wouldn't be willing to sell at these prices, and that might be a remaining bullish fundamental story. But I don't see that being the case. There's not a lot of motivation from a risk management standpoint to gamble on this. You might have northern Brazil continue to be a little drier going into the next few months of planting, but that's really the last remaining big bullish story that could come in before we have South American supplies come on and be very bearish.
All right. Walt, now you work with a lot of guys looking to buy corn. What are they out there buying in this environment? Do you know?
Well, the availability is one of the challenges if they were inclined to buy. The feedlots are in an extreme dilemma for two reasons. One is this availability of anything like old crop or new crop. It's just not being available. The other side of the challenge is the price. Should they buy at the $7.50 level each, or should they wait and anticipate a better yield than what's been projected by the USDA and hopefully get it more towards $7? They're hung up on that, and the inventory for feeding at the feedlot levels are very low right now. Now they got plenty to get by, that's not the point, but they have no reserves, because they can't get it, or if they can get it, they're not sure about what the future of that corn trade's going to make it.
All right, so it could get tight if we end up with a shorter yield than is projected.
Probably, Mike, what could happen easily enough, there's enough of the large feedlots that are just barely manageable on their corn inventory for their rationing. If they hold off of buying at the price in fear of the market regressing later, then at the time when reality sets in, they're going to have to buy corn. They can't buy, as Elaine's indicating on the wheat, they can't buy wheat. You can't put 41% of protein in a ration and have a number of bushel or any higher percentage of wheat in a feeding ration. So they're going to have to step in and own a considerable amount. Now what will be their competitor? Could be the ethanol. It could be that we have a dead cat bounce out here in regard to the bad news that's being circulated in the ethanol industry. And it could be that if that corn would happen to drop to a level making it more attractive to the livestock sector, then over here, the ethanol plants would find it very attractive also.
All right, a couple of buyers out there. Let's talk soybeans a little bit. Elaine, we did see some bullishness there. What do you see going forward? How long is this going to continue?
Well, and to Walt's point of the feed substitutability, soybean meal is really the leader. If you look at whether soybean meal and soybeans are both going up, but the Malaysian palm oil, the soybean oil market is not really the leader, and we saw that in the NOPA crush report this week, is that we really aren't crushing as much. The oil is not the driver. It's the feed ingredients, the soybean meal, the DDGs that are still available, that are still bringing in profits for the ethanol plants. As long as people are looking for feed, that will support soybeans and soybean meal.
All right, for how long? For producers out there, they're getting into their fields, they got a little better yield than they were expecting.
Yeah.
What should they be doing?
Well, again, this is a situation where you're kind of you're racing the clock on the South American crop coming on, or what the market sees for the South American crop. To some extent, right now, we have a battle for acres for the May contracts and forward for South American. Should they be planting more corn or more soybeans? And that ratio is sticking right in with where you would expect it to be with these tight feed ingredient ending stocks. So you've got some time here before we really know what the prospects are going to be for South America, if they're going to get good planting weather and get some good prospects for soybean production going into 2013. But at this point, yeah, and appreciate the bullishness for commodities and the dollar, but be ready to sell off the combine if you just want to manage your price risk.
All right. All right. Well, let's move to livestock a little bit. Walt, let's come back to you. We've seen a little bit of a rise in feeder cattle prices over the past week. Is that going to continue?
It has got every good reason to continue. The extraordinary ensilage chopping that has gone on in this questionable corn crop, particularly across the interior of the Midwest. There's areas, Mike, where the destruction of the drought is not as personified as it is right through the heart of our corn belt. You can go to west central Nebraska, western Nebraska, in the valley area out there. They're picking corn, and some of it is yielding in the high 70s to just under 200 bushel per acre. Now you can go over here into the interior of Iowa, and it's from 0 to 30 bushel to the acre. So the drought and the effects of it is more in the corn belt center. And that's where the masses of the ensilage has been chopped in these fields that have just absolutely no chance for a corn production. In that case, that's where the real demand for feeder cattle has caused this market to raise, as you suggested. We've got a real demand starting with those producers that put up this ensilage, because when you look at an ensilage pile, there's one thing that can eat it. And that's cattle. You can't feed it to hogs, can't feed it to chickens. You've got to be able to put it through cattle. Light cattle, calves, are the best utilizers of that ensilage at the onset of a good growing program. Now, later on is when then the blade gets sharper, because eventually you've got to add corn and more corn to your feeding ration. That's where the feedlot operators are really in limbo. The farmer feeder doesn't have it on hand. The ability to buy it is very limited. The other third issue is, what's it going to cost me? And so $8 corn, heaven forbid to a cattle feeder. If we get $8 corn, their feed costs go to $1.30, $35 on a finished ration, compared to a growing ration of $80 to $1 a pound. So the potential of cheapening these high-priced feeder cattle to a break-even level that is workable for a person buying them is practically not there.
All right.
It just simply is hardly there. You got about $1.30 break even at $13.50 on a finished steer today at the feeder cattle prices. And you can't do it when you're putting $1.30 or better in a gain cost.
All right. Well, looking at also at consumers of corn, let's talk hogs a little bit. We got just a little bit of time left. Where do you see the hog market going?
That's an interesting point. There's been so much antagonism on the hog industry for the last probably 3 months at a minimum. And we've seen a crescendo developing in the volume of sows being liquidated out of the hog units. We've seen that mount and mount and mount. We were killing nearly 7% more hog sows than we were a year ago, for instance. The tonnage kept going up, and our average market weight on market hogs, not sows, held at 269 pounds a head, and it just week after week after week. It was hard to realize that a 2.2 to 2.3 million a week hog kill was made up of that high a percentage of hogs that created the tonnage. Now we're seeing a turnaround.
All right. Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Elaine. Appreciate you being here. That wraps up this edition of Market to Market. But if you'd like more information from Elaine and Walt on where these lofty markets just may be headed, visit the Market Plus page at our website. You'll find expanded market analysis, audio podcasts, and streaming video of our program, as well as links to our Twitter feed and Facebook account, all free at the Market to Market website. Be sure to join us next week when we'll examine the market impact of the USDA's Cattle on Feed report. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Mike Pearson. Have a great week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Market to Market is provided by DuPont Pioneer, working with growers to match the right product to the right acre. Science with service, delivering success.